I am torn. I can't decide if I should say this is a great game or that it's terrible. After almost 2 hours of testing, I was ready to quit. But, frustrated and bored, I realized I'd only crafted one item up to this point and probably should see what else was available besides weapons to give a fair opinion on what Smalland VR has to offer. That's when I found myself playing another half hour and had to make myself stop because I wasn't just having fun, I was really enjoying myself, but needed to get this video out. So what could be so great that makes me do a complete 180 after almost 2 hours of play? First, let's talk about what Smalland VR is, then I'll tell you what made me want to quit every 10 minutes before I finally cut the recording due to a low battery. Smalland Survive the Wilds VR puts you in the boots of a tiny creature called a vanguard. They look a bit like elves with antennae. You've been summoned to the surface by the Elder to protect the people from an illness that has stricken the creatures of the land, causing them to be on a hostile rage. It's actually a pretty good story with fun quests. It's a survival game where you keep track of your health, nourishment, and temperature. The question is this VR port of a well-received flat-screen game ready for the public yet? When I first started, I was saying, no, it's not. When Smalland first opens, you're immediately presented with the most underwhelming introduction to the game's visuals that I could possibly imagine. You're in a hot air balloon of sorts, but this is not only the worst looking and lowest pixel balloon I saw in the game, it shines a huge light on one of its worst visual features, which is the skybox. I both loved the visuals of Smalland and thought they were pitiful. The graphics are lower quality, but much of the game is really pretty, quite magical even. But the skyboxes remind you that you're not actually in an open world faster than your character can turn, which isn't that fast at all, by the way, but I'll talk more about the crummy and awkward controls in a minute. If we're truly judging this game by visuals, I would say that they did really well making a beautiful experience out of low graphics. But those low graphics remind you that they're there every time you look up, which, when you're small, tends to be a lot. Especially since there aren't really any NPCs to interact with on the ground level. At least not any that walk around and seem alive. Even though the fruit and other items didn't look that great, they did something with texturing that made up for it. Basically, I think the visuals are not top-notch, but I can see the potential and will patiently be awaiting an update. Hopefully, a Quest 3 update. The next thing I noticed was, you guessed it, the controls. I don't like them. Where do I start? Movement, inventory? Now, let's start with the options menu. There's barely one at all. I get that many VR games have too many options, but they really missed out here. The only options that are available are a couple of UI features, movement, and whether or not you're right-handed. That's it. No difficulty settings, and I was so glad when I found smooth turning, but then another issue arose. There's no adjustable speed for smooth turning. I mean, I don't like spinning in real life while I'm playing a game because I get disoriented and tend to hit things. So a proper smooth turn is pertinent to a good VR experience. Let me know in the comments what settings are a must anytime you play a VR game. The hands that you have look good enough, but they don't quite feel lined up with my actual hands. When I pick things up, they're not actually being held by the hand, it just makes this same fist for everything, and it may or may not be lined up with the item. It's pretty poor looking. Plus there's this blue laser thing you point with, it just doesn't quite feel like it's in the right spot. I also noticed when crafting with a hammer and using an axe, that the way it's held seems off. The bow also just didn't feel right when aiming. And I pulled that grip button so many times at stuff on the floor, but I could never get that icon to appear so I could get it. Sometimes I would resort to crouching down in real life because, there's no crouch button. If I couldn't get the icon to appear, the little fiber bundles would just roll away forever, and I couldn't catch them because there's no run button either. That blue laser, by the way, has some glitches. Sometimes it's not there, and sometimes it is, and it just kind of looks weird at certain times and was distracting. Fighting was, underwhelming, but also kind of cool. Let me explain. You have a sword and shield or a bow, which look pretty good, but there's no strategy involved. You just get close to a bug and wave your sword as fast as you can. There's no collision on the bugs. There's a bit of real collision with enemies like that giant spider, but it kind of felt strange fighting. There's definitely no weight simulation or force required to get a hit. I didn't really feel challenged. I couldn't tell if my shield actually did anything. I really didn't have the chance to fight much. I mostly just killed bugs that didn't fight back with any ferocity. Except the bees. Man, they just about killed me. They were actually harder than that spider boss I fought. I had a lot of issues with the inventory. First off, pro tip, that big circle in front of your abdomen is for dropping items straight into your inventory. And the 4 boxes are basically your belt. I wish this was less video gamey and looked like an actual belt. I felt the same thing about the menu. It could have been a journal or a leaf scroll that you scroll through, or a book made of bug wings, something besides a standard gaming menu. And sometimes using an axe on a mushroom or tree would cause problems. I could never tell where the hitbox was, the stalk, the leaves. It didn't seem consistent. After maybe an hour or so of this extremely slow resource gathering, and remember, I couldn't run too fast and turned like a rusty doorknob, I started to not even want to review the game. But I pressed on and got back to my home base, which is just a little leaf hut, to craft my first item. By the way, you can only craft at your home base crafting table. At least, that's all I could do so far. But this is when it all started to change. I found that my home base was modular. I could tear down the walls it had and build new ones. I could add on to it. I built a chest to go inside, put some windows in, added an entryway. I have big plans for this tiny house, and there's lots to unlock. There's crafting of weapons and armor. So far, I just have padded armor, which protects you from the cold and gives you these cute little oven mitts for your hands. There's no torso or arms in this game. I hope maybe they'll have an update where you get to see your cool outfit on your body. You can also cook. I built a fire outside my house and cooked some delicious beetle sausage, mushroom steak, and grilled grasshopper leg. This game is a little different with crafting. You don't have recipes with you all the time. If you want a list of what resources you need for a crafting recipe, you can save the recipe in your inventory. This means you need to plan when you go out what you'll be looking for, or memorize all the recipes. After I started seeing the value in Smalland VR, I was suddenly accustomed to the slow turning, the lack of running, the simple combat, the crummy grab button, the lackluster graphics. I wanted to play the quest now and see more of the locked locations I hadn't seen yet. Find out what the stables are for, all because now I'm on a mission. I have a house to build and a character to suit up with the best weapons and armor, and the hope that in the coming months, this game will fix the things that are wrong with it, so I can hurry up and enjoy what's right. If you'd like to get this game on MetaQuest, I have a link in the description.